Hello, everyone. Tonight, we're going to do more funky stuff you've probably never seen. We are going to take a look at this little stock car. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, what's the point of your semi-scale stock car here? Well, interesting story behind it, interesting history. Not quite what it appears to be. So, what this is a car made by Frank's Roundhouse. Frank's Roundhouse was around in, I believe, the 80s to the early 90s. This stock car actually comes from, he purchased the tooling from Chris Model Trains. So this is actually a heavy-duty little guy. Nice thick plastic metal frame. Different trucks compared to what Lionel was using at the time. Plastic couplers, but I'm pretty sure these are similar to what Weaver was using because they actually work. But the other thing that is funky about this car, it is actually a sound car. So I have the original box here. So hold on, let me try to prop this up so you can see it. Totally plain, but really nice cardboard, nice and thick. On the other side here, you can see this has what's called a LASU, which stood for Live Action Sound Unit. They were made by QSI. These cars came out in the early 90s. They were not the first sound cars on the market. This one happens to be Cows. I will turn it on so we can listen to it. But Right of Way Industries actually had the first sound car. Theirs was quite dull. It was just a cow going moo, moo, moo. That's it. So what made these interesting, you can see you got a battery in there and a switch. Get my fat ass finger in there, sorry. These are motion activated. So, the more the car moves, the more noise the cows make, which is pretty cool. The other thing I thought was quite interesting. Now, keep in mind, I saw this in a TM Books and video years and years ago when I was a kid. Well, not a kid, I was a teenager. But TM Books went up to QSI up in Oregon. And they were interviewing Fred Severson, and he was showing these off. So what I think is cool about it, let me show you the inner workings of this thing. Stand by. Okay, I turned the sound off real quick, but I don't know if any of you guys, well, you all do. Remember pinball machines, original pinball machines from 60s, 70s, all the way up into the 80s. They had a tilt mechanism in them. And how those would work is you had a charged ring with a pendulum swinging in the middle of that ring. If the pendulum contacted that ring, it completed the circuit and it would shut the game off. Same thing here, same theory. So see your little pendulum there? Anytime it contacts that metal ring, that's what changes the sound of the cows. So let me turn it back on. So the more it touches, the more noise they make. I just thought it was a fairly cool concept. So not only, they had all sorts of different sounds. They had, this obviously is cows, but they had pigs, they had sheep, they had chickens, they had turkeys. The coolest sounding one to me was the monkeys. I'd love to find one with monkeys in it. because the monkeys just make so much damn noise. It's funnier than hell, in my opinion. But yeah, I just thought I had never seen one of these for sale. I had to jump on it. When these things came out, they weren't exactly cheap. So like I said, I think these were early 90s, so 91, 93, 91 to 93, somewhere in there. They were $89. That was a pretty good chunk of change back then. Probably not something I would have bought back then, but as I get older, I start to appreciate stuff like this because, you know, I know a lot of people hate QSI, but unfortunately they really were innovators. They had stuff like this. They had those sound blocks, if you guys had ever heard of those things, and those were basically a box with a speaker in it that ran off of track power, and they had all sorts of different types of sounds. If you want to hear what those sounds are, go to my buddy's channel, Warden Entertainment. He has every single one of them, and he has all the sound files. But they had freight sounds, passenger station sounds, like country sounds with crickets and frogs, stormy night, winds, creepy Halloween noises, thunderstorms, all sorts of stuff. It's really cool, in my opinion, because it just it would give your layout a bit of an ambiance. You know, the trains obviously would make more noise than all of your sound effects, but it still was there, and it just made a nice background. Even this thing, I figured out, I mean, it might not sound like it's super loud there, but when I hook it to a train and run it around the loop there, you can hear it, and you can hear it anywhere on the layout, and it just makes a nice little, it just kind of brings your, it's going to sound stupid, but it just kind of brings your layout to life. And I understand why these guys wanted to do stuff like this. It really, you know, back in the days before we had, you know, the only sound systems we had were either Choo Choo from American Flyer way back in the day, and then in 70 or 71, we got the mighty Sound of Steam. I know Rail Sounds came out in 89, but original Rail Sounds doesn't sound that good to me. But hey, if other people like it, that's great. So I found this thing. Well, I found it with two things here. This guy here is actually an old school Right-of-Way Industries signal. This thing was new in box, and it actually works. Pardon my setup system here. I do not have infrared detection or an isolated or insulated rail, so I'm using a mechanical TAD, track activation device. Designed for tubular track, not fast track, so it's fairly ghetto. But hey, you know what? It works. But yeah, so your train goes through the block. Let's see, I don't know if without the body, if it'll be heavy enough. Let's see. So your train's occupying the block, turns to red. When it leaves, goes to yellow for a few seconds. Back to green. This guy also came out about 93. So it was just kind of a 90s score for me on this one. Like I said, this guy was $89 new. When I bought both of these, the price worked out. This was $20. I got this for $15. So I was pretty happy. I've never, truth be told, I've never been a fan of stuff like this, but I just thought the mechanism and the little history behind this was just kind of cool. So I wanted to have one. But anyway, I hope somebody got a kick out of this and finds this old stuff as cool as I do. But I just kind of wanted to show this guy off. So I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their weekend, all 2 hours of it or whatever's left. And I will catch you on the next one. See ya.